one of Segura's fans, came up with the theory where somebody has taken all of Garth Brooks's tour dates, and every tour date lines up with a missing person or an unsolved homicide, every place he's ever been. I said, you know what? Has anybody ever written a book about this? So I called Pete. I said, Pete, this is what I'm thinking. I think we look into this. And he said, oh, absolutely. We have to look into it. And so we started doing research. And we hired 2 researchers to look up. We broke up the list, first of all, just to try and find all of his tour dates. There's over 1,000 of them. Not to mention Grammys, Billboard Awards, everything, all the places he's lived. Very quickly, we came up with about 120 missing persons and around roughly 90 unsolved homicides that
coincided with locations and times of his tours.
With locations and times. And I am telling you, the man is a monster.
Shut the fuck up.
Well, I guess it's official. We're now on Facebook. I really wasn't sure about this at the start. But then a friend of mine said something that just made all kinds of sense. She said, think of it more as a conversation. I like that. But I'm already finding out on my own. So it's wiping the walls out between you and me. And I really like that. And I really like that. It allows us into each other's worlds, or I guess in my case, the hotel room. When I think about things I want to post cool stuff, slick stuff, neat stuff. I want to post cool stuff, slick stuff, neat stuff. I want to post raw stuff, slick, neat stuff, cool, neat, cool stuff, neat, cool, raw stuff, cool stuff, neat, raw, slick stuff. But most of the stuff I'm going to post is going to be raw stuff like this. This is just who I am. So if this is truly a conversation, then I say let the conversation begin.
Oh,
no, you don't want to be a bad guy, no. I mean, you look like a good guy, you know?
Okay, I guess. I'd rather kill somebody.
Oh, you would?
That'd be fun, sure.
Oh, you know, see, he must have this hidden mean streak that we can't see.
Well, howdy, sobers. Much too young. If tomorrow never comes. Unanswered prayers. Friends in low places. Not counting you. What's she doing now? Shameless? The river? Somewhere other than the night. That summer, 1 night a day. What? The red strokes. The fever. It's midnight, Cinderella. Lost in you. It don't matter to the sun. That's the way I remember it. Thicker than blood. Why I ain't running. More than a memory. These are some of Garth Brooks' most popular singles. And some of the names, when looked at in a certain light, can maybe be telling. But let's look at some of the albums that he named as well. Garth Brooks, No Fences, Ropin' in the Wind. Who you roping up, Garth? Beyond the Season. There is no season for serial killing. The Chase, In Pieces. Sevens, perhaps the 7 Deadly Sins. Gunslinger, Fun, and Time Traveler. Also pretty weird. But let's look at these live albums. Double Live, Triple Live. Is this alluding to the fact that Garth Brooks is living a double life? Maybe even a triple life? Well, we got to get to the bottom of this one, you guys, so...
Let's go. Alcohol.
All right. Welcome back to Sobering Stories with me, DJ Petrovsky. This is your first time here. Go ahead and lasso up that subscribe button over there. And then hog tie yourself that thumbs up. Give this video a like. Because I promise you, you're going to like it. And if you don't like it, you can just get on and get. If you are a returning subscriber, howdy, sobers. We do have a single business item on the docket, and that business item includes some new Sobering Stories merchandise that you can get at your local general store by following the link that I've included in my most recent post, as well as the description. Shirt says Sobering Stories. It's got the Pacific Ocean on there, and it's really just one of those, if you know, you know, but if you don't know, well then... you better figure it out. Sales of the shirt definitely support the channel. The company producing the shirts It's actually going to be my very own workplace. So, you know, highly recommend high quality fabrics, high quality prints, as well as extremely stylish. Available in multiple different colors. We got black, we could do red. So far that's all I've done, but we could do white, titanium white, whatever you'd prefer. But don't wait for the manure to dry before you go scoop one up. Do it now, click the link. Alright, I'm done with that. Anyways, if you did not catch my video last week, we talked about the Titanic. That was probably one of the better episodes that I've ever done. Extremely interesting, packed full of information you probably ain't never heard of. So go check that episode out. But I was looking for a different direction to move this week. I mean, sometimes you just get burnt out on looking down these rabbit holes and you just need something fresh, something new. And all this week during my live streams and just in things that pop up on my feed, I'm continuously bombarded with these theories that Garth Brooks actually is a secret mass murdering serial killer. And I got immediately intrigued. These theories really originated from Tom Segura on his podcast, Your Mom's House, which he hosts with his wife, Christina, something with a P. I can't remember. I think it's too hard to pronounce. But they started talking about how Garth just has this really weird way of acting. His posts online are super strange.
And my dream is for us to love one another. All of us.
Let's go have some fun. And let's get physical playing music. I like that thought.
Thank you for my life. God bless you guys. I love this. Thank you. Instagram, it's on. Hashtag Ask Garth. Ask me anything, okay? Hashtag happy. Hashtag Garth. Hashtag Mr. Yearwood. Oh, hashtag you're it. Just a blaring on a radio, blare radio. This is gonna be good. I'm saying today is the day. Celebrate. It's the Queen's birthday, so I'm taking over all our socials, asking you to post hashtag happy birthday, Tricia. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know. Ask me how I know.
His like introduction to joining Facebook in 2014 was like really weird.
I want to post cool stuff, slick stuff, neat stuff. But most of the stuff I'm going to post is going to be raw stuff like this.
And there's just some weird things about Garth that he does frequently.
This is the most work that I've ever, not work, but it's the most time I've ever put into anything.
He reminds me of Ricky Gervais from The Office.
The character.
Yes.
Yeah.
David Brent.
Yeah. Yeah.
They want it to be the best night of their life when you walk in there. That's a wonderful advantage to have.
Let's have Dr. Drew watch him.
Yeah.
Give it to them. Let them know that you care. Let them know that you're singing just to them. And that is easy in a honky tonk, and it became easy in an arena. And that's what I'm hoping becomes easy in a stadium.
He's about to cry.
People the furthest away make them feel like they're front row.
Oh boy.
He's getting emotional there about putting on the show that'll change your life. It's weird, man. It is weird.
Yeah.
Something's going on. Dr. Drew has to watch.
What's going on is he's thinking about all the bodies he's got stacked in fucking graves on his in his
You think
yard.
he's a killer?
100%. He's probably killed 200-300 people in his life.
It's a good cover.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think so.
I'm going to go with it. Just a dash of Asperger's.
Including this show where he's literally performing the entire thing with his eyes completely wide open.
I lie awake and watch her sleeping. If I never wake up in the morning, then she must face this world without me. So tell that someone that you love just what you're thinking of. If tomorrow never...
But in discussing this, Tom Segura likely jokingly just says, well, he's probably thinking about all the hundreds of bodies that are buried beneath his massive estate. And of course, with the internet, this theory, this thought, possibly this satirical comment has exploded, and it's got people curious. It's got people looking into it. There's even a book that's been written about it by Matthew Cox, and it's a very interesting book. And I happened to read it. And so I've got some interesting things that I found out from that book. And one of the biggest pieces about this entire story is that people say, well, yeah, confirmation bias, of course. If you go digging with answers in mind, you can likely line up pieces of the puzzle that might fit your narrative, but it may not be true. But I did a little bit more digging than just seeing what they had to say in this book about all the coincidences in Garth Brooks' locations and these missing persons / cold case murders. I've got some pretty interesting info for you guys. So buckle up. Let's see what we got going on with good old Troyal Garth Brooks. Yes, you did hear that right. Garth Brooks' real first name is Troyal Garth Brooks. He was born on February 7th, 1962. His father's name, also Troyal Raymond Brooks. He was a engineer in the oil field, had a really dependable, good-paying job. And his mom's name was Colleen McElhenney. She was actually a really good singer, and she had actually been signed to Capitol Records. But unfortunately, this is the point when she started popping out children. She had a total of 5 children, including Troyal Garth Brooks. And this kind of put her career aspirations on the back burner. And ultimately, you can imagine, she probably had a little bit of resentment towards the kids for taking this career away from her. That's not to say that she didn't love her kids endlessly, but I'm sure there was a little piece of her that always wondered, what if? As you can imagine, with Garth's mom being very heavily involved in music, there was a lot of music that was played and appreciated within the Brooks household. They grew up listening to country and rock and roll, which ultimately would lead to this fusion of rock and country that we end up seeing Garth Brooks famous for. Though born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Garth would grow up in Yukon, attending Yukon High School. He was very involved athletically, playing football, baseball, doing track and field, and he was a javelin thrower, a really good one at that, which would be a really good skill if you were to go on to becoming a serial killer, just saying. But on top of all of that, Garth was also involved in band. He played guitar and he sang. But this is an early example of how Garth is able to separate himself into 2 different persons. He's got his athletic, jock side, and then he's got his slightly more creative, musical side. Garth would graduate from high school in 1980, and then he actually got a track and field scholarship, likely for the javelin, to go to Oklahoma State University, where he would study marketing and advertising, just like me. One thing they say quite a bit about marketing and advertising, which I can absolutely attest to, is that a majority of what you're learning is how to manipulate people into feeling like they need something that they didn't even know they needed. Not just want something, make them feel like they need it. Essentially just mass manipulation. And if you haven't seen it, you should watch The Shopping Conspiracy on Netflix. Extremely interesting. Also very sad. While in school, he would work different odd jobs. He worked at the Boot Barn for a little while, and he also worked at a bar called Tumbleweed Ballroom in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where he was a bouncer there. And in the meantime, while all this was going on, he was still working on his musical career, working as a singer-songwriter, trying to play at different bars, marketing himself, seeing if any sort of bands would want to pick him up. Just really trying to break into the music industry. He did graduate finally in 1984 with a degree in marketing and advertising and set himself up for some sort of success, but his true passion had always been music. As you can imagine, probably like with most of yourselves, going to college offers this entirely new world of freedom. And I'm sure Garth was feeling that freedom. And this kind of freedom is what some people speculate led to him claiming his very first victim, a young lady named Tracy Nielsen, in 1981. She was living in Moore, Oklahoma. She also attended OSU, which is where Garth was attending, and it said that they lived just a couple of miles away from each other, about 10 minutes away. It's very possible that Garth somehow bumped into her, noticed her at the school, maybe just knew her from passing or a class or just being mildly close to each other, maybe bumping into each other in the city. Who really knows? But what we do know is that Tracy was found with multiple wounds that were the result of a knife. She was found in a field just off the highway in Moore, Oklahoma. No suspects had ever been identified, and to this day, the case remains unsolved. After graduating school, continuing to work these odd jobs, and continuing to try and bust into the music career, he ended up moving to Nashville, Tennessee, for obvious reasons. It's one of the big musical hubs, especially for country music, that existed, well, and still exists, till today. Another very interesting case that occurred in the early 1980s was while Garth was still working as a salesman at the Boot Barn, when a young lady named Olivette Turner, she was living in the Nashville area just like Garth, where he had moved to try and accelerate his music career, and she had mentioned to her aunt that she was going to come visit her on May 17th of 1989. Unfortunately, she would never make it because she disappeared, never to be seen again. They definitely suspected foul play, but they still have no suspects, and nothing has ever been solved in relation to Olivette Turner's case. But its relation to Garth Brooks' current workplace, maybe it's somebody that he had noticed, or maybe after getting off work at the Boot Barn, he had noticed her bar hopping around and decided to stalk or follow her. Things would certainly turn around for Garth. He would come out with the 1989 hit, Much Too Young, and then he would follow that up with his debut self-titled Garth Brooks album. And to the dismay of nearly every single contemporary country music artist at the time, Garth Brooks' style and his music, nobody liked it, at least not in the mainstream country community. The fans, however, loved it. This self-titled album took off. It was a huge success. This album had hits like Much Too Young and If Tomorrow Never Comes, but the biggest hit on this album was The Dance.
I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the day.
Obviously, with this success came a huge tour, and he embarked on his Ropin' in the Wind tour in 1991. This would have him traveling all across America, different cities, different states, just seriously touring his ass off. And this tour would last all the way up until December of 1992. But along the way, headed down Interstate 80 towards some of his Midwest tour dates, it's likely that Garth came in contact with a young lady named Tammy Zawicki, who was standing on the side of I-80 next to her broken down Pontiac. August 23rd of 1992 would be the last time that anybody ever saw Tammy alive. Now, Tammy's car had broken down along I-80 in Illinois, but 9 days later, on September 1st, her body would be found along the side of the road in Missouri, nearly 500 miles away, wrapped in a blanket. She had multiple knife wounds, and unfortunately, she was unresponsive. Now, it is entirely normal for people to dispose of bodies in random, maybe faraway locations, but driving 500 miles to do so, just to dump the body off the side of the road, not even hide it or conceal it, doesn't seem very typical. However, if you're traveling on tour and you really don't have anywhere else to store a body, but you want to make sure that it's not located in the same state where everything happened, making things even more difficult for police to figure out, then what's the best thing to do? Well, along your tour route, just dump that body off to the side at some point. Now, at this point, while on tour, Garth has already released 3 studio albums between 1989 and 1992. All 3 albums were a huge success, the first one being his self-titled Garth Brooks, the second being No Fences, and then he released Ropin' in the Wind. All of the singles on No Fences are some of Garth's most popular songs, even to this day are considered his most popular singles. It includes songs like Victim of the Game, Unanswered Prayers, Thunder Rolls, and quite possibly the biggest song that everybody seems to know by Garth Brooks, Friends in Low Places.
I was the last one you thought you'd see there. And I saw a surprise and the fear in his eyes when I took his glass of champagne. Well, I guess I was wrong. I just don't belong. Then I've been there before. Hey, I didn't mean to cause a big scene. Just give me an hour and then I'll be as high as that ivory tower. You're never now. It's the soul I've got to pray. In low places.
low places. As you can imagine, Garth being in this grind of touring, creating albums, being this massive, huge country star celebrity, he started turning more to drinking and just doing different things on the road to try and manage and cope with the stresses of being a touring artist. But we don't ever see Garth develop any serious, debilitating addiction issues. And yet, most people who are on this kind of a grind, most people who are involved in this kind of lifestyle, they turn to some sort of addiction or maladaptive behavior in order to cope with the stresses of what they're going through. And for Garth, not really having any mainstream addictions, it makes you wonder, what were his addictions? What was he doing to keep himself focused, to take care of his stress, to cope with the intensity of being this icon in the country scene? Just makes you wonder. Yeah, he was probably killing people. But anyways, Garth Brooks is getting so massive at this point that he is now embarking on a European tour. So the tour is going to start in the United States and then move over to Europe, travel around Europe, and then finally finish at the end of 1994. The tour begins on January 29th, 1993. He makes a bunch of different stops around the US. Finally, on December 3rd, 1993, he makes a stop in Memphis, Tennessee. Holy shit, I'm Dr. Seuss. But something interesting happens on December 2nd of 1993. A young man named John Cheek, he returns from a business trip back to his home in Memphis. He was last seen at about 11 o'clock. He was at the Crescent Center at, I don't know where that is, in Memphis. And then he had a colleague drop him off at his car, which was a 1987 charcoal gray Acura Legend. And unfortunately, he would never be seen again. What's very strange about this whole situation is that his 1987 charcoal gray Acura Legend was located 12 hours later on the Delaware Street exit near the Mississippi-Arkansas Bridge. What the heck is going on here? But like I mentioned before, it kind of makes sense to take somebody's car, bring it with you on your tour dates, kind of move out of the state that you're in, and then finally get rid of this body. It helps you avoid detection. But what's even weirder, there was no body recovered. All they found was his car parked near this bridge, and they all just assumed that he must have jumped over it. So we're not really sure exactly what happened to him. He's never been seen again. This case remains unsolved. Also in 1993, while on tour, Garth Brooks releases his fourth studio album, because I don't consider his Christmas album to be one of them albums. His fourth studio album called The Chase, which, what? But let's just go ahead and take a look at some of the songs on the Chase album. Some of the interesting names of them. Somewhere Other Than the Night, Every Now and Then, Walking After Midnight. I don't think this one's necessarily that dark, but Dixie Chicken, That Summer, Night Rider's Lament, Face to Face. Dude, come on. Some of these are definitely interesting names. And sure, like confirmation bias, I get it, but it's interesting. And like I mentioned before, Garth is grinding so hard. He's currently on his first world tour, and he's now released one album, The Chase, and he's going to release a second album August 3rd of 1994, which is before he finishes the tour. He doesn't finish until like October 8th of 1994. This dude is cranking. So how is he relieving all of this stress? Well, yet again, let's take a look at some of the names for the songs of this album in pieces. Here we go. This is good. Standing Outside the Fire. Good song, though. The Night I Called the Old Man Out. One Night a Day. What? Kicking and Screaming. Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up. The Red Strokes. Calling Baton Rouge. The Night Will Only Know. And then the Cowboy song. Man, tell me it doesn't get darker with that. Like, that's crazy. Come on. You can't say that that's not interesting. All right, now just a quick fun fact for you guys, because I know you love fun facts just as much as I do. But in 1994, they released a Garth Brooks The Hits album, which was probably stacked with hits. That album was actually launched into space And then Garth Brooks actually had a conversation with the astronaut who took it with him into space while he was in space.
Station, this is Garth Brooks. How do you hear me?
Ah, there we go. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. You sound and look great.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such an inspiration to so many.
Let me play you a little something over here. Now, I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to find out.
I'm pretty sure that's the rule of spaceflight. Never turn Garth Brooks down when he wants to play something for you.
I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. These waters are my sky. I'll never reach my destination till the river runs dry.
Awesome.
And I can only assume that the pressure on Garth was super high because literally within a few months, by November of 1995, he was already releasing another album titled Fresh Horses. Nothing exciting about this album really at all, but this would actually spark his Fresh Horses second world tour. This would start in 1996 and would span all the way through 1998. But we do have some interesting dates starting out this tour, and they don't have anything to do with music. On March 18th of 1996, a young black man by the name of Branville Roll, which is a super dope name, I've never really heard that name. The young man was seen leaving his home with an acquaintance. Nobody really knows who this guy is, nobody could identify him, and unfortunately, Branville would never be seen again. Of course, you would be interested to know that Garth Brooks had a 3-show run starting on March 14th, going through March 16th. And then he was to move on to Cleveland, but he didn't have to be there until March 20th. So that gives him a solid 4 days to do whatever he wants. Matthew Cox was able to get a hold of one of the roadies that were on tour with Garth, and he asked him a bunch of questions about, is it easy for the artist to just kind of disappear and do their own thing for a while before the show? And he's like, yeah, I mean, nobody's keeping tabs on them. They're not really a part of the setup crew. They don't set anything up. They just do their own thing. And then when it comes time to the show, he's like, I've honestly seen artists show up extremely last minute. Like nobody's been able to find them. And then out of nowhere, they're ready to go on stage. Yeah, so the possibility that Garth, before each show, had plenty of time to just go around and do whatever he wanted throughout the day while everything's getting set up is very likely. This roadie also discusses this weird instance where he heard Garth in his trailer before one of the shows arguing with somebody, but he said it didn't sound like he was on the phone with someone because he was answering himself when he was arguing. It was almost like he was arguing with another side of himself. It's just another instance where we start seeing the two sides of Garth Brooks. Coincidentally, also in 1998, Garth Brooks releases a live album entitled Double Live. Get it? Like double lives? Like two lives? Like living two lives? Come on, you guys. This second world tour would finish up on November 22nd of 1998. And what some of you may not know about Garth Brooks is that he semi-retired. Maybe he was getting burnt out. I mean, he had made tons of albums and just on multiple tours. But instead of just retiring and doing his own thing, he decides he wants to play baseball. So he starts going to all these different tryouts, trying to join these different professional baseball teams. For guys who were in these minor leagues and who were actually trying to make it in baseball, it was kind of a slap in the face. Like, Garth Brooks is going to come in here all overweight, trying to run to first base, take my spot. Garth decided that he wanted to try out for the San Diego Padres. So he went to a training camp where they would do, basically tryouts to see if you could make the team. And he, of course, didn't make the team. He didn't give up hope. The following year, in the year 2000, he decided to try out for the New York Mets. And they were hosting a training camp, which was down in Port St. Lucie, Florida, which is near West Palm Beach. And while he was down there, he was training, trying to work up his skills so that he could actually be a member of the New York Mets. But some interesting things happen while he's down there. On March 6th of the year 2000 in West Palm Beach, a man by the name of John Dorney disappears from his residence. He has no history of drug or alcohol abuse, but his keys to his car were left on the coffee table. His car was left parked across the street from his apartment, and yet the dude is gone. But that's not all. On March 8th, 2000, a young man named Manuel de la Torre, he grabs a cab, has him drive him all the way to Orlando, and he tells the cab driver, don't worry about picking me up, I'm going to take a Greyhound bus to West Palm Beach. Unfortunately, Manuel was never seen again. So did he make it to West Palm Beach, bump into Garth, and that's the end of the story? I don't know. One of the reasons people speculate Garth took this weird baseball hiatus, announcing his early retirement, was because of the failure of one of his closest friends, one of his most near and dear partners in crime, a man by the name of Chris Gaines. Now, hopefully you guys already know that Chris Gaines actually just is Garth Brooks. But the story of Chris Gaines is so weird. Chris Gaines is based on a fictional character that was going to be in a movie called The Lamb, and it was going to be produced by Garth Brooks' production company, The Red Strokes, which is weird. In order to generate some hype about the movie and kind of get people introduced to this main character of this movie, he decided that he was going to adopt the personality of this Chris Gaines main character. He adopted his backstory, which involved his family emigrating from Australia, so he had an Australian accent, and because of some of the trauma he had experienced, he developed a sex addiction, and he had this super, super weird emo look. But I've got to give him credit. It's before emo was really cool. And then he has all of these super interestingly amazing songs that he sings as Chris Gaines. He releases an album pre-movie status entitled The Life of Chris Gaines. And I think he was anticipating that this would go over really well. And I think it would have if he really didn't break character.
Well, howdy there, strangers. Sorry to interrupt ye, but I done come from Pagosa Springs to buy me some wares and such.
What is the door code to the tunnel? I told you, mister, what would I know about a door code? I'm just a simple blacksmith. Mr. David Palmer of Colorado Springs. Oh, my name ain't Palmer, it's Old Smithy.
Maybe they're right, Brian. I mean, this is a special circumstance that... We have nothing like these fancy devices in our time.
No, I'll say.
Never break character. He would actually go out and do interviews with VH1 as Chris Gaines. He would do the accent.
He just didn't want anybody to see him. And when you start living the lifestyle that avoids people, you get to a very strange space.
Music proved to be Chris's salvation. In early '93, he picked up the guitar and painstakingly started from scratch.
It was the most amazing thing to watch, the sheer guts and determination that this boy of mine had. I wished so much that his father could have seen it.
The next thing I know, I'm on top of my own roof with this garden hose.
And later, Chris's favorite vice turns life-threatening.
Chris had a lot of different combinations. 2 girls, 3 girls, 4 girls, you know, whatever.
If Chris hadn't have gotten treatment for his sex addiction, I don't know if he'd be here with us today.
When Behind the Life of Chris Gaines continues.
He was fully committed, but for whatever reason, he decided to let it slip that he was in fact Chris Gaines. It's like he couldn't keep the secret any longer. But because of that, he got so much hate because his current fan base was all very conservative, country music loving, God-fearing Americans, and then for him to come out with this complete emo alter ego with these super R&B kind of poppy songs.
Baby, I have found I get lost in you.
They weren't about it, not at all. And Chris Gaines essentially nuked Garth Brooks' entire career. Now, this wouldn't happen until much, much later, but Garth Brooks' third live album that he released, which would be in 2018, was titled Triple Live. I just thought that was really interesting because maybe he has this serial killer persona, Garth Brooks persona. He tried to have a baseball persona, but that failed. So then he develops this Chris Gaines persona. So maybe Chris Gaines, Garth Brooks, and serial killer Garth Brooks are the 3 lives of Garth Brooks, whose actual name is Troyal. So maybe these are the 3 lives of Troyal, Garth Brooks. Now, Garth technically claims that he took this time off so he could focus on family, really just put everything back into his marriage and into his children, because in 1986 he married a young lady named Sandra Mall, and then they ended up having 3 daughters together throughout the 90s, but things seemed to be falling apart, likely because Garth was unfaithful and he was constantly on tour. Like, I can't even imagine he was ever at home. He was not a dad, he was not a husband, he was just a superstar. So things really hit a head in 1999 and they actually decided to separate. And so it feels like this whole Chris Gaines thing really had a massive effect on Garth's life. By 2001, him and his wife would officially be divorced, but the woman he was cheating on her with was actually one of his famous country singer, celebrity colleagues, Trisha Yearwood. One of the most interesting things about this divorce, though, is that once they divorced, Garth ended up paying her a $125 million settlement. And I'm not really sure, maybe you guys can let me know in the comments what that's all about, but I didn't understand that. It seems fairly confusing that he just give her that much money. And I'm sure he still was on the hook for like alimony and like whatever else, child support and stuff, because obviously the kids would mostly stay with her, but they did split custody. So I don't know. Very interesting. Now, Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood would be married by 2005, but things really started way back in like 1987. Trisha would be on a lot of the tours that Garth would go on. She would be an artist that was obviously featured with him because they're both country singers. And of course, over time, feelings are going to develop. You spend enough time together. And like I said, they developed this affair. But one of the things that Trisha did for Garth was it seemed to suppress some of his need to go out and satisfy these urges. Because when she was actually on tour with him, you'd see these periods where there was less people that would show up missing, or these weird circumstances with these unsolved homicides. It's not like it completely ceased. It just slowed down. And honestly, you guys, this might mean something. It might mean nothing. But I found it to be quite interesting. Garth Brooks literally calls his wife, Trisha Yearwood, Miss Yearwood, all the time.
Me and Miss Yearwood talked about this. Again, here's your order of God, your wife, your children, your job. But in our situation, the children came before Miss Yearwood. So they have always been placed above her, and until they get off in their own life, that's how the order is in the family. And Miss Yearwood understands that, and we've talked about it. And this is very important because I can't imagine what it's like to be a step parent. Miss Yearwood calls it a bonus mom, which I like. But that's how our family was. We were blended.
I've never once called my girlfriend Miss and her last name. It's just weird. I don't know. Also, technically they're married, so wouldn't it be Mrs. Yearwood? Just saying. Now, in total, the book that I read, Bodies in Low Places, claims that they found over 200 instances where Garth Brooks' tour dates or whereabouts aligned with people who went missing. Of course, they don't go through every single one of them in the book. They go through quite a few of them, I'll say that. And I really wish that Matthew Cox would come out with like a visual aid map of all of the different things that line up. I think that'd be super, super handy for not only the book and sales, but also just to give you a visual idea of what we're looking at. Everybody wants to see this map. So if they have all these dates, they should put that together. It seems after analyzing a bunch of these, like 160 of them seem to be very closely tied to the actual instances of what happened. In terms of like very likely that Garth Brooks could have been involved. There's 40 or so of them that are more of a stretch, but overall, there's quite a few cases. And one of the biggest questions people have is, where are the bodies, G? Because if these are all missing persons, well then, where are all the bodies at? They've never been found. Well, in 1990, when Garth was starting to take off, one of the first purchases he made was not like a big yacht, or like a nice car, or a huge house, or a bunch of like fancy jewelry. What he bought was a 19.8 acre plot in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. This plot would just sit there for years, but this is actually the current plot of land that him and Trisha Yearwood's home sits on. So there's quite a bit of speculation that 19.8 acres is plenty of space to hide 200 plus bodies. So is that where the bodies are, G? One of the other interesting points that the book brought up is that there is over a dozen people who have disappeared during the dates and locations of different award shows, like the CMAs, the Grammy Awards, a lot of which Garth Brooks is a regular attendee. I mean, his music seems to be timeless, and he continues to put out album after album. And what a lot of people don't know is that his first 6 albums were all diamond-selling albums. Some of the names mentioned that have disappeared around these different venues are Fernando Valenzuela, Kenneth Bush, Gregory Tackett, Catherine Middingham, Suzanne Lyle, and all of these cases have gone unsolved up until this day. Now, even though Garth was decreasing in popularity, he never stopped making music. In 2001, he would release his album entitled Scarecrow, and yet again, we have some really interesting song titles, especially knowing that his marriage has just crumbled, and he just went through this whole Chris Gaines thing, which seemed to tank his career. So yeah, but let's check some of these out. We got Why Ain't I Runnin', Wrapped Up in You, The Storm, Thicker Than Blood, Big Money, Squeeze Me In, I don't know what that means, Mr. Midnight, Pushing Up Daisies, Don't Cross the River. Some of these are kind of interesting, I don't know, a little weird. And it's at this point that Garth seems to have completely given up, because we don't see another studio album from him until 2014. But Garth Brooks is able to secure a spot performing at the Wynn Casino and Resort down in Las Vegas. But as part of his agreement to actually do this residency, he requests that he's able to use one of the private jets that belongs to, I guess, one of the owners of the hotel. And they agree. Now, it kind of makes you wonder why he wouldn't just move down to Las Vegas, but instead he decides to keep his home in Oklahoma, where he's residing with Trisha Yearwood at this point. He decides to fly back and forth to Las Vegas all the time to do these performances at the Wynn. Maybe this was his way of transporting bodies back to his house, these burial sites, with this private jet. Because as we know, there's very little oversight on cargo that goes on the FBO planes. It's pretty much just load up the bags and go. Like, who cares what's in them? Are these the bodies, G? Now, there is some interesting stuff going on with Garth being back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, living with Trisha Yearwood. He's kind of taking a break from music. His professional baseball career has failed, and obviously his movies are not going anywhere, especially because of the fact he is turning down all these different movie roles like Saving Private Ryan, and there's definitely another one, but I can't remember. But he turned him down because he couldn't be the main role, and he really wanted to be the main role. That's why he was so stoked about Chris Gaines. He wanted to hype people up about this new role that Garth was going to be playing, and it didn't work. In fact, the movie The Lamb never got produced and never ever happened. But we do start to see a lot of strange disappearances happening in the Tulsa area during the period where Garth was living in Oklahoma. We also see a lot of strange disappearances happening in Las Vegas and not very far from the Wynn Resort, where he was performing on a regular basis, and then probably flying back to his house, burying the bodies. Who knows? On September 11th, 2008, a guy named Ray Nathaniel Johnson, he owned some sort of auto garage, and he actually had to go out and tow a vehicle back to his garage. So he had called his wife and said, hey, got to go tow this car, bring it back. Then after that, I should be home. He was last seen towing said car back to his shop, but when he never showed up back at home, his wife became very worried. Ray's wife decided to go down to the auto lot to see, like, maybe he's down there still working or something. But when she got there, she noticed that his car was still there, and it's the only car that he was using to go anywhere. So that was kind of strange. But unfortunately, she had to put in a missing persons report, and Ray Johnson Jr. was never seen again. In January of 2013, Tulsa police were dispatched because 2 hikers had actually stumbled across skeletal remains that they found in the Arkansas River. Once they arrived, they realized that the skull had a clear wound to the head caused by a gun, and it appeared that these remains had been there for quite a while. Once they finally were able to identify the body, it was known to be Mr. Thomas Martin, who had actually disappeared from the Tulsa area. And strangely enough, while he was reported missing, his car was actually making movements along different highways. And eventually the car was found ditched near an airport in the Oklahoma area. So all very strange. And then the body was taken to a separate location and disposed of somewhere else. Then on the evening of October 18th, 2010, a night in which Garth had performed one of his famous Wynn residency shows, a man named Robert Waddell was unfortunately shot and killed in his home in Las Vegas, Nevada. There was no sign of forced entry, so it seemed like the person was let in voluntarily, as if they knew him, or maybe was a famous singer who could make his way into anywhere. Unfortunately, there was no suspects, and the crime has still been unsolved. Then on February 12th of 2011, also in Las Vegas, after a Wynn performance, a man named David Christensen was out doing some bar hopping. Somehow, in the series of events that night, he ended up disappeared. Nobody seemed to know what happened to him. To this day, we still don't. Now, these strange disappearances would continue all the way up through September of 2014. But at this point, Garth was set to try and make a comeback. It had been over a decade, and he figured people probably forgot about Chris Gaines. Maybe people will want to hear Garth Brooks' classics. Maybe they'll want to hear some new music from him. So he starts to kickstart his career back up. He starts doing these stadium tours with Trisha Yearwood. They're doing really well. Honestly, people are still stoked to see Garth Brooks. And after a certain amount of time, you can imagine people had just forgotten about everything or had no idea about who Chris Gaines was. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Now it's 2014, and Garth is not only coming back with some new music, but he's also coming back for some new victims. December of 2014 in St. Louis, Garth Brooks had just performed an amazing show, and a young lady in attendance, Miss Tina Lopez, thoroughly enjoyed the show. She left, she went out to some bars afterwards, and then she disappeared. The thing I found most interesting about this case in particular is that they clearly name Garth Brooks in the news report. It says that she had left a Garth Brooks show before disappearing. He had 3 dates in St. Louis, but his last one was on December 7th. But something else that I did notice, a little pattern between all of these different connections, is that it always seems to be after he finishes a show in whatever town he's in, on his way to the next town. It almost makes it easy for him to get away with dumping the body somewhere. And of course, you don't want to have to deal with this body lingering while you're performing shows and staying in one place. It's definitely a pattern we've seen in nearly every one of these cases. Garth and Trisha would make that move to Tennessee in 2018. They had the house constructed, so it obviously took a little while before they could move out there. And it seems like Garth was getting a few more, victims before he left the Oklahoma area. On May 2nd of 2017, a young lady named Desiree Ferris went missing from the Kansas City, Missouri area. And it just so happens to coincide with tour dates that Garth Brooks was playing in Kansas City. He did a multiple show run through there, and it seems to align with this young lady Desiree disappearing when she had promised she would make it over to a friend's house, but she never made it. Equally as relevant, her phone pinged multiple different times, all within about 15 minutes of T-Mobile Center, which was actually called Sprint Center at the time, and that happens to be where Garth was playing for those multiple nights in a row. And to this day, she's never been found. The difference with this tour was that Trisha was really around a lot more than she was before. So this is going to make it a lot harder for Garth to sneak away and carry out these different things, but that certainly didn't stop him. What it seems like is between these tour dates and between these little stints where he was at home, he was taking advantage of that time, and he was actually going out to his old stomping grounds back in Oklahoma, in Tulsa. On February 14th, 2019, damn, that's Valentine's Day, Ashley Easton and Bashar Burke were cruising in their car when suddenly a stranger completely carjacked them and got into the back seat and pulled out a gun. He told them to start driving, And eventually, the stranger ended up pulling the trigger and killing Bashar. Ashley, realizing the direness of this situation, decided to speed up and then smash the car into a guardrail, hoping that this might keep her from getting shot the same way that he did. Once the car had crashed, Ashley decided to get out of the car and make a run for it, but the stranger, who was knocked out for a second, came to, and as Ashley was running away from the car, he was able to get another shot off, which hit her in the neck, and unfortunately, she was found unresponsive when paramedics and police had shown up to the scene. And of course, our mystery suspect, though he left DNA all over the place, he was never to be found. Our guy realized his DNA was everywhere, so he set the car on fire. That'll take care of it. And I'm guessing you already probably assumed that Garth Brooks was in fact touring in Oklahoma in July of 2017 when all of this happened. Very strange, huh?
Yeah, around 50 people showed up to the memorial to remember Ashley. Now, her mother, children, and friends were here to remember her life. Now, Ashley was found shot in the head and neck last Tuesday on the side of the road near Air Depot in Wilshire. She was only 30 years old, lived in Yukon, and has 3 children. Another man was found dead near Ashley, Bashar Brooks, and according to the family, that was her boyfriend. His body found in a burning vehicle the day before, and the family says they were together for about 5 months. We spoke with his mother today.
To take her away from her family, her children, it's just unheard of. And whoever did this, I want them to be caught. I want every detail to come out. I want to come face to face with them. I will fight the rest of my days of my life for Ashley and Bashar Brooks. Call anybody that you need to call.
There also seems to be a very common theme in most of these cases that somehow involve the person's car, which leads me to believe that this person needs their car to get around or really has access to them while they're out and about or on the road. They're not being abducted in their house most of the time. A perfect example of this is a young lady named Keonta Anglin, who was released from a mental hospital on July 10th, 2018. And after being released from this hospital, nobody had seen her until they found her unresponsive in her car a few days later. On December 5th of 2017, a young lady named Shania Coley actually went missing. Her body didn't turn up until May 6th of 2018, and it was found in a car. Very strange. No explanation, no suspects, nothing. Now, Garth Brooks seems to have made a successful comeback, but in 2018, this is when Tom Segura really starts pushing this whole Garth Brooks is a serial killer narrative, and because of that, there's fans that show up to Garth's shows and they have signs that just read hilarious stuff. In one instance, this guy is holding up one sign and then the Megatron zooms in on him and he drops that sign and it says, "Where are the bodies, G?"
And this is the jumbotron.
Garth, we love you. Where are the bodies, G?
And then it just cut right back to Garth. So that was, I mean, it was captured by.
So do you think, does Garth know who you are? Garth. Really? Mm-hmm. Would you have him on your podcast?
I'm a sophomore at the College of Journalism. I'm studying ad PR. And one thing that kind of pertains to me, I guess, is I deal with a lot of social media, and I'm a new fan of yours. So I went to check out some of your social media, and I don't know if this is something kind of new for me with your following. I checked some of your posts and saw some comments that were kind of interesting. I didn't know if they were references to different kind of songs or something. I don't know. Could you shed some light on that? I'm kind of iffy
I
on
might
it.
be a little unaware of what you're talking about when you say some posts that talk about songs. So you might have to be a little more specific for that for me, please, because I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of comments that just kind of seem, I guess, a little random. Like a lot of them are saying, like, watch for waspas, and I guess, like, are you following protocol and things like that? So I don't know, and there's a lot of them.
I don't know, man. You got a hell of a job cut out for you if you're trying to make sense of social media. I can tell you that.
And his Instagram would blow up with comments about, "Where are the bodies? Yo, my grandma's been missing. Please tell me where she is." All kinds of hilarious Instagram comments. But when you go to try and find those now, Garth has deleted all comments on all of his videos, so you can't do it. What makes it even more interesting is that Tom Segura has found some really funny, interesting videos about Garth, even one claiming that if he was going to be in a movie, he'd rather be the bad guy because he would kind of like to kill somebody. Sounds fun.
I'd rather kill somebody. Oh, you would? That'd be fun.
We've been right all along.
And then the video in 2014 where he actually announces his entry to Facebook, super weird video. And this, what seems to be satirical troll by Tom Segura, has totally evolved because of the internet, to the point where I just read a book called Bodies in Low Places, dedicated to analyzing if this is true or not. There's been many people who have analyzed this to see whether these dates line up and if this is actually legit, because Garth Brooks never addresses it. He never goes on any podcasts that are basically unscripted. The only interviews he's ever done are partially scripted or fully scripted interviews. And besides that, all he does is his shows, and he just keeps to himself. I did see something, though, that says Garth Brooks officially blocked Tom Segura from his Instagram, and then he completely disabled all the comments on all of his videos. Yeah, I also think it's funny that it was extremely hard for me to pinpoint all of Garth Brooks' tour dates. It's almost like he intentionally had them scrubbed, so you know what tours he was on and what years they were, but finding the specific dates could be a little bit more challenging. Whereas for Madonna, I went into her Wikipedia and it just has all of her tour dates listed out for like every tour ever. To add even more fuel to the fire, Garth Brooks has been sued a couple of times since he took that long hiatus. In 2014, he was sued by one of his former employees, Lisa Sanderson, basically just claiming that she was never compensated for the work that she did in trying to get this movie put out with him, with the Red Strokes Company. And then he ended up going after her, trying to sue her, saying that she actually is the one that owes him money because she never completed work that was in some contract. She then goes on later in 2023 to sue him again for basically the same thing, refusing to compensate her for things that he promised to compensate her on. And one of the things that she talks about is how he has this megalomaniac personality. And when I think of that, I think of somebody who has severe narcissism, someone who has a severe God complex, to where they have this desire to control things. And typically that manifests in the form of people becoming serial killers, or at least abusive to those around them, trying to take control of every situation they have. They thrive on that power and control. Then in 2024, another lawsuit was brought against Garth Brooks, this one a little bit more serious. Allegations of SA and fully taking advantage of a former makeup artist that worked with him in 2019. Apparently she'd fallen on some hard times and needed a little bit of help, so Garth Brooks offered to have her work more and offered her some financial assistance, essentially. Apparently that didn't come without strings attached, because he would then proceed to show her his genitals. And then at one point when they were actually headed to the Grammys and she was there to do his hair and makeup for him before the Grammys, he actually only booked one hotel room for the both of them. And then while they were in that hotel room, he completely took advantage of her.
Garth Brooks is one of country music's biggest artists of all time, selling more than 162 million albums. He's now accused of sexual assault and battery in a new lawsuit. The accuser, named Jane Roe in the suit, was first hired by Brooks' wife Trisha Yearwood in 1999, and in 2017 began working for Brooks. The suit details an alleged incident in 2019, claiming that Brooks raped Roe in a hotel during a work trip, citing, quote, Brooks appeared in the doorway to the bedroom, completely naked. It continues to state Roe felt trapped in the room alone with Brooks, with no one to help. In the suit, Roe also accuses Brooks of repeatedly exposing himself to her and sending sexually explicit text messages.
And Brooks put out a statement in response to the accusations in the lawsuit, reading in part, quote, I trust the system, I do not fear the truth, and I am not the man that they have painted me to be.
And then right after that, he was expecting her to just go back to business as usual. She had to do his hair and his makeup and get him fully ready for the awards ceremony. and he just pranced off like nothing was wrong. These allegations, though, they shed a whole different light on the type of person that Garth Brooks is behind closed doors. He's not this all-American family values type of guy that everybody seems to think he is, which makes you wonder, does he have even more of a dark side than that? Where are the bodies, G? Another thing that I personally found interesting is the elaborate ties that Garth Brooks seems to have with the Democratic Party. He was a huge proponent of the jab. He refused to play at Donald Trump's inauguration.
Garth Brooks has been a lifelong Republican, but when invited to sing at yesterday's inauguration, he said he would do so in the name of unity. Well, that's got him in a kettle of hot water with his more conservative country music fans.
And please welcome Garth Brooks to perform. Garth Brooks is taking incoming from all sides. Amazing grace. Some of his conservative fans are irate that he would perform at Joe Biden's inauguration after he refused to do the same for Donald Trump 4 years ago. Brooks said a scheduling conflict prevented him from singing for Trump. Of his performance Wednesday, one fan wrote, "Very disappointing." Another said, "You lost me, Garth." And this, "We can play cancel culture too." Brooks said he was not taking sides.
This is not a political statement. This is a statement of unity.
He's also being criticized for overexuberance. After his performance, he shook hands with President Biden without a mask. Same with the vice president. He even hugged Presidents Obama, Clinton, and Bush. A big pandemic no-no. Brooks says he was tested repeatedly in the days leading up to the inauguration and was negative for COVID-19. And boy, he really can't catch a break. He's also being criticized for his hair. Online, people are making snarky comments about his new, thicker do. This was Garth Brooks a few years ago, and here he was yesterday. Dr. Mark Dower says he knows what's going on.
It looks like he's had some sort of a hair restoration procedure done to enhance the density of his hair. We take the hair from the back and sides of the scalp and we move it to the areas of hair loss. When the hair is cut really short, like Garth's was, you can kind of see small evidence of those scars.
After all that, well, maybe we can agree on one thing. He sure sounded amazing.
Amazing grace. Even though he had played at nearly every single presidential inauguration in the past, 10, 12, 16 years, he also played at Jimmy Carter's funeral, and he's got these really, really close ties to a lot of people in the Democratic Party. Most notably, Barack Obama, whom he played at his inauguration, and the Clintons, whom he played at their inauguration. Garth Brooks has also been a huge proponent of Hillary, and he has been very outspoken about his political views time and time again. And for someone who is involved with the conservative, more Republican side of his fan base, it is kind of interesting that he is so much a Democrat. It almost doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And things just don't seem to be letting up on Garth. In September of 2024, he decides he wants to open up his own bar called Friends in Low Places. And at this bar, he's going to specialize in carrying pretty much every single beer possible. While being asked if he's planning to carry Bud Light after the recent Dylan Mulvaney scandal, he says, "Hell yes, I'm going to serve it, and anybody who won't drink this beer is an asshole." So he's essentially calling 95% of his country conservative audience assholes, because there's very few people in that community that were on board with the whole Bud Light marketing thing with Dylan Mulvaney. I think he lost a lot of support during that whole thing as well, and it just seems like one thing after the other keeps happening to Garth. And yet he is still doing world tours to this day. So if you ask me, it kind of feels like Garth Brooks has some very close ties to our good friends with this elite wealthy cabal existing in the deep state. He's a part of the globalist network, and it seems obvious to me now, especially if he's out there collecting all of these sacrifices or whatever he's doing. Maybe this is how he's keeping his fame at the peak. Garth Brooks has put out a bunch more albums since he had returned to music, none of which have been well received or, in my opinion, are any good. And a lot of them, you actually have to buy a full box set, which then requires you to buy all of his previous albums in order to get the newest album, which seems really messed up. And it's just like a scam in a way to get you to buy all of his old albums that are not selling. So there's something going on that's keeping Garth Brooks relevant and making money. But as I continued digging, I found something that I wasn't necessarily ready to find. When I was watching this Joe Rogan podcast where they're talking about the whole Garth Brooks thing with Tom Segura, basically he says that you could pretty much do this with any major celebrity that tours a lot. Through confirmation bias, you're going to inevitably find links to missing persons and tour dates. Like, it's just bound to happen. The probability is there. And so I was like, well, maybe that is true. And other people must have thought this same way, because people have done the same thing with some of Tom Segura's tour dates, and it is quite interesting what they found. But before we get to that, I wanted to mention that one of the things Joe Rogan says is you could probably do this with Madonna or whoever. So I was like, you know what? Madonna's a good one. I bet she toured a lot. I bet she toured all over the country, all over the world. So let's look into her. And I probably analyzed at least 100 tour dates, probably more. And I was trying to figure out if there was any overlap between her tour dates and missing persons cases throughout the US. And I was only able to come up with 2 out of like the entire 100 plus that I analyzed. Now, consider that in relation to Garth Brooks, who also has hundreds and hundreds of tour dates, but Matthew Cox and his co-writer, researcher, they both found more than 200 cases where Garth Brooks and these missing persons cases all align, which I thought was pretty interesting. But then I did my own dig on Tom Segura to see, okay, well, how many of his tour dates align with people who went missing? And of the 53 tour dates that I was able to find and analyze, 13 of those aligned with missing persons that were within the same time and same location as where Tom Segura was. Even more interesting is that some folks on Reddit posted that all of the times when Tom Segura is not touring, there seems to be this interesting connection between those times and these different killings that are happening that are being called the Lady Bird Lake killings. Lady Bird Lake is kind of a lake, small lake section of this river in Austin, Texas. For whatever reason, it's a pretty hot spot for people to turn up unresponsive. In the most recent years between 2021 and now, there has been a huge spike in the amount of bodies being found in this lake, especially along the river that leads to this lake. The police in the area are all saying that these are all completely natural or accidental things that have happened. None of these do we suspect foul play. And yet, if you look at this map, there's bodies being found all up and down this whole river stretch. And they all seem to end up either along the river or down in Lady Bird Lake. Now, Tom Segura and his wife were very open about moving to Austin, Texas in 2021. And it just so happens to coincide with this huge spike in these Lady Bird Lake killings. So that certainly makes you wonder. And it also makes you wonder if this whole Garth Brooks satirical thing that he made up was actually just a way for him to let a little bit of truth slip out, because you can't keep things hidden forever. So maybe this is his satirical way of dealing with his internal confliction over the things that he's doing.
I could do it if I could throw her out the window or something.
So she wouldn't exist after?
Yeah, just like slap her on the balcony and then just like literally just dump her off, you know?
But why the need to kill her?
I don't know.
Just
Feels
for
like
kicks.
Feels exciting, you know?
I think you just want to kill people, and you're using the sex stuff as an excuse right now.
Yeah, let's not get into it too much.
And Tom Segura is a weird guy. I mean, his comedy is certainly dark. He's definitely a darker individual. But for instance, take a look at his most recent Netflix special show, Bad Thoughts. I'd say like 95% of those sketches involve not very funny instances where somebody is getting beaten up, hit, yelled at, embarrassed, or murdered.
Large iced coffee, extra ice, please, and just a small splash of whole milk, please.
Tom, iced coffee for Tom.
Oh my God!
there's been multiple instances on his Your Mom's House podcast, especially when he talks to Bert Kreischer, where they actually talk about murder and if they were a serial killer and the types of people that they would kill if they were. And one of the things that he says that I found to be very interesting, he asked Bert, like, would you rather kill a girl or a guy? And Bert's like, oh, probably a girl, because then for sure I could overpower them. I don't want to end up embarrassed and then they end up killing me or something, which I thought was kind of like a funny answer. And you can kind of see in Bert's eyes the whole time, like, why are we talking about this? Why is he so serious about talking about this? Like, it's very uncomfortable for me. But then he asks Tom, like, yo, what would you do? Would you do guy or girl? And he says, man for sure.
See, most serial killers have patterns. Like, he killed everybody in this small radius, like geographically.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way you would really be able probably to be like a prolific serial killer in today's world would be to minimize patterns, like do it in different areas and have them seemingly not be linked together. I think there's somebody out there who is like really like psychopathic evil, but really, really smart, right? And if they are, they probably have researched so much all the way, like everything that could lead to your capture. But you know what? Why these guys always get caught is because they get sloppy. They get lazy. Yeah. And if you're out there and you want to prove that you're not, you know.
Well, how would you kill someone? Would you kill them with your bare hands or a rope?
It's a really good question. I thought about it. I wrote a paper about it in high school.
I couldn't even wrap my head around like a Ted Bundy, the urge to break into someone's house and kill them.
Yeah. To fucking murder somebody? Yeah, I fantasized about it, you know.
Do you want to do it in the south, in the north? Don't do it in the north because snow. You might have your tracks.
Actually, you're right. And the cold really helps preserving evidence. So the hotter the climate, the better.
All right, so you're in Miami.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah. Do you, man or woman?
Man.
Oh, wow. I'm going woman. What if we trigger something in our brains and we go, this does sound fun?
Yeah, of course it sounds fun. Yeah, what you're saying to it kind of takes me back to Gacy, because he thought that if he was sloppy on that first kill, it's like everything falls apart, but you pay attention, you do the work, and then you're able to pull it off for a bunch of years, you know?
There's no way this is 100 calories.
He seems way too confident and quick with his answer. And then when you take into consideration that most of the bodies that have been found in Lady Bird Lake have all been males, as well as the majority of these 13 people that I traced back to Tom Segura aligning with his tour dates. Let me just go through some of these dates and names with you that I found myself. All right, we have Chris Delatorre from Long Beach, California, which would have been very close to Tom Segura's home at the time. And this happened on March 19th, 2016. Now, this name might look familiar because, well, it is. This is the same guy we talked about earlier, Manuel De La Torre, but his real first name is actually Christopher Manuel De La Torre. And it's kind of interesting that Garth Brooks was accused of being responsible for this when it also could have been Tom. On September 7th of 2016, Roland Singleton disappeared from Mansfield, Massachusetts. February 10th, 2017, Brittany Briggs, she disappears after a show that he had done on February 9th, just the night before. On February 19th, 2017, we've got another disappearance of Sasheen Shepard, which coincides with his tour date. March 18th, 2017, we've got Ishmael Jackson, also disappeared on the same date he was in town for a show. April 6th, Elijah Paris disappeared. April 20th, 2017, there's an unknown person who disappeared from the Dallas area. On April 21st, 2017, in Houston, Mr. Ricardo Gutierrez disappeared. April 25th, 2017, Kithy Paget. She disappears after one of the Houston improv sets. That was like a 3-day Houston improv run, and right after that was finished up, she disappeared. On February 16th of 2025, Deontay Bryant disappears from Washington, D.C., and then on April 5th, 2025, John Gans disappeared from Missouri, Kansas City. May 14th, 2025, Justin Appleberry disappears from Lebanon, Missouri. And then May 30th, 2025, Starisha Marbury from Union, New Jersey also disappears. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these people out of the 13 are males, all of which disappeared or were murked at, on, or around the day of Tom Segura being there for a performance. One that I found very, very peculiar, just because it's a little close to home, was after Tom Segura performed on September 14th of 2024, a man's body named Anthony Delgado was found behind a dumpster roughly 15 minutes away from Ball Arena in Commerce City in Denver.
Commerce City police are investigating a suspicious death over the weekend. Officers discovered a body behind a dumpster at East 64th and Holly Street on Saturday morning. All we know is the victim is a man. Police did say they do not believe there is a threat to the general public.
Very interesting timing, very strange coincidence, whatever you want to call it. But yet again, another tour date that aligns with a person who ended up unresponsive or missing. And I thought people were just grasping at straws or just trying to be like, see, confirmation bias, you could do it with anybody, you could even do it with Tom Segura. But then seeing that Madonna didn't really have as many as Garth and Tom had, I was like, I don't know, maybe not so much.
Since Segura moved to Austin, 12 men have gone missing around Lady Bird Lake. The theory suggests that Tom Segura's move and the timeline of these disappearances are too coincidental to ignore. They also claim Segura's show sales have been declining and the number of listeners to his podcast have decreased. Observers have noted that Tom Segura appears visibly frustrated and angry in his podcast episodes, which some interpret as signs of deeper issues.
This person, Lady Bird Lake.
Yes.
Is it two people now or
no,
three?
No, multiple.
Oh, it's multiple.
It's like a lot.
Oh, is it really? Listen, some people just tripped and they fell and they drowned.
A guy fell in the lake and now he's with Jesus. Now anyway, get on the raft.
South and north, the cold really helps preserving evidence. So the hotter the climate, the better.
Is Tom so egomaniacal that he's leaving breadcrumbs behind? Similar to the night of November 16th, 2019, when Christian Pugh went missing after Tom's big Netflix special in Austin, November 4th, 2022, Tom is filming another Netflix special in Phoenix, Arizona. The following night, a man is found bruised up and dumped in a canal, just north of the Celebrity Theater where Tom performed his highly criticized Netflix special, named Sledgehammer. The victim was found after he had but 2 beers at a local dive bar. Eerily similar to the stories of missing men near Lady Bird Lake.
You are looking at exclusive video you'll only see here on 12 News of the last time a beloved husband, father, and chef on the night of his mysterious death. Hours after that video, he would later be found in a Phoenix canal. Nearly 3 weeks since Jose Jimenez was found dead, there are still very few answers about what happened.
A preliminary medical examiner's report lists drowning as the cause of death, with alcohol intoxication as a contributing cause.
I don't think that should be misconstrued in any way.
But those close to Jose say it was normal for him to have 1 or 2 beers after work.
We want to see if anyone saw him.
They hope someone will come forward and help them with any leads. Family offering a $5,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest.
Approximately 14:02, a 911 call was received around the area of Cesar Chavez and Oasis. Austin Fire Department, as well as members of the EMS, attempted life-saving measures. Unfortunately, the male was pronounced deceased at 15:11 hours. Yeah, no foul play is suspected. They are asking if there are any additional witnesses to contact the homicide tip line at 512-477-3588.
This marks the 13th and 14th bodies found at the lake since Segura moved to Austin, only 8 miles from Tom Segura's riverfront property. If these deaths weren't suspicious enough, September 14th, just 4 days prior to the most recent bodies found at the lake, Tom Segura is in Denver, Colorado, performing at the Ball Arena. Hours before Tom's mailed-in performance, a body was found, disposed of behind a dumpster, just minutes away from Tom's stage that night. You'll often hear detectives claim there are no coincidences. Is Tom merely a victim of a series of unusual events? Or could he be the unthinkable?
Oh yeah, Turns out the guy that subleased it from you died in there, and that's the smell.
Did you hear what my husband just said? The man who subleased it died in our old studio.
And left, like, where we used to film this show.
The Lady Bird Lake mystery continues until someone finally pulls the last thread.
Now, when it comes to these ladybird killer missing persons, since 2002 all the way up through today, there has been 19 different people that have gone missing and turned up at Lady Bird Lake. What I did find very interesting is that Tom Segura's current home is only about 10 to 15 minutes from any one of these body sites. Now, this body count would have been 20 if it weren't for the fact that Christian Pugh, who had actually left a Tom Segura show in Austin, Texas, he had gone down there just to see this show. After leaving the show, he goes and hits some bars along Rainey Street, and then he decides to leave there completely blacked out, and at some point makes his way over to the Congress Street Bridge, which happens to go right over Lady Bird Lake, and somehow he falls over the edge of this bridge. He falls all the way down to the ground and is left there for 3 days. Fortunately, somebody finds him, help is called, they pick him up, they take him to the hospital, and the poor kid is in a coma for a month. He finally wakes up, he has no memory of what happened. There's only one video camera that caught what happened, but it doesn't really see the bridge area where he actually fell. It just shows him walking towards the bridge. So all very weird, all very interesting. The last thing that he really remembers was being hit over the head. He's pretty positive that this might have been the Lady Bird Lake killer that did this. But the weirdest thing about everything is that Christian has zero memory of who did this to him or exactly what happened that led to him falling over this bridge. He does this podcast with a guy named Ryan Sickler called the HONEYDEW podcast. And on this podcast, he's telling his story about what happened to him. And he mentions that he was there to see a Tom Segura show. When he tells Ryan this, Ryan starts dying. He just cannot handle it. He thinks it's the funniest thing ever. And he has to call up Tom Segura immediately and let him know. And it's just so weird, just such a weird conversation. I get it, they're comedians, they think weird stuff is funny, but I was not really understanding why it was this funny. I don't know, I'll let you guys decide, but Ryan Sickler definitely calls up Tom Segura and is like, yo, you'll never believe what happened. And he tells him the story, and when Tom Segura looks through the phone, through the computer at Christian Pugh, he seems to be giving him the creepiest, weirdest, wide-eyed smile that I've ever seen. It just gave me the creeps.
So I was in town to see Tom Segura, of all people.
Wait, hold on now.
Yeah.
The whole reason you were in Austin was to see Segura, and you go missing for 3 days and wake up a month later. I gotta tell
Swear to God.
I'm definitely telling him this.
Swear to God.
Dude, you talk about a fan.
Because my parents were supposed to go see Segura with me. And I swear to God, so they knew something was up. They're like, nah, he would have shown up for this. And,
oh, dude.
Let me kind of explain this. My injuries consisted of very busted knuckles, and I had one big whelp on the side of my head. Someone busted the side of my head. No other marks on my face, no other marks anywhere else. But it looked like I got in a fight or something else.
Hold on. Let's see. It's going to be, I highly doubt it, but let's see if he'll answer. Dude, I am so glad you answered, Tom Segura. You're not going to believe this shit. I'm here doing my Patreon show, and we'll get the wildest stories out there, right? Yeah. This guy I'm talking to right now, this young gentleman, he is 24 years old. His name's Christian Pugh. Tom, Christian went to see you in Austin, and after the show, his parents were also supposed to go with him to see you in Austin, Texas, and after the show, he got drunk and wandered off from his group, was found 3 days later under the Congress Street Bridge, He still doesn't know that, and he woke up a month later, dude. He went to see you in concert and was missing for 3 days, found under the Congress Street Bridge, still blacked out. And 1 month later, this motherfucker woke up, and he's about to tell me his story right now, Tom. He doesn't even know. We're just getting into it. I go, how did you end up under the bridge? He goes, that's still a mystery. So there's closed circuit footage of him from banks and shit wandering off. It's a police. I'm about to get into it right now, dude. I was laughing so hard. He goes, I went to see Segura. And I was like, and you went missing for 3 days and woke up a month later? He goes, yeah. Are you schizophrenic, bro?
No, I'm not.
He says no, but I have questions, dude.
He said no.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you. All right, I'll see you later. He said, next time you have tickets on him, all right?
And this, to me, was when I really first started believing that Tom Segura could, in fact, be the Lady Bird Lake killer. Also, very interesting about this podcast episode is that it is not freely available. You have to go to Ryan Sickler's Patreon account and actually pay to see this episode. And then I did see in one of the comments that the full episode was actually unlisted, and he had left a link to it, so you could actually watch the video version, because on Patreon it's just the audio. So I thought that was really weird. Like, why not have this publicly posted? Did somebody tell him to take it down from being public? What's going on? It's just another really weird piece of the puzzle that might mean something, might mean nothing, but it is interesting. And as I mentioned before, all of these different disappearances happened at times when Tom Segura was not on the road. He would have been home in Austin. And then this one instance with Christian Pugh happens right after a show that happens in Austin. A Tom Segura show? Something's up. It's kind of weird. And Christian is not the only survivor. There's another guy named Jeff Jones who also survived, and he claims that the last thing he remembers is having a drink, which he thinks might have had a little something extra in there. And then he's seen on camera stumbling around, and he's almost 100% convinced that he was pushed over this bridge. He did survive, and toxicology reports would show that he did in fact have a little something else in his drink. So all of these random people showing up in Lady Bird Lake, this is not something that's happening by accident. Something nefarious is going on here, Tom. And then I saw these videos about Tom Segura and how funny he finds it when people get seriously injured. He loves hearing them scream in horrific amounts of pain. And he shows a couple of these videos to his wife on their podcast. And the whole time she's like cringing, like, why are you watching this? Why do you think this is funny? And same with me. I'm like watching it. I hate seeing that kind of stuff. I hate seeing people get hurt, especially really hurt when you see like bones crushing and sticking out of their skin and legs folding in half. Like, I cannot handle that stuff. And yet Tom Segura's over here thinking it's super hilarious. And he thinks that the funniest part is these people's awful screams where they're literally crying out in immense pain.
Ready?
Oh.
Here we go. This is pretty good.
Fuck. Oh, no. I don't like this. I don't like it.
Sorry.
Oh, my God. Babe. What part is funny?
The scream is funny. You don't think that's funny? You know?
No, he hurt his leg, babe.
You don't think that's funny?
No.
So these guys are jumping out of a plane. Check this out. Right? Pretty crazy. This guy, I don't know. He has to like improvise.
Better do something.
I don't know why. His parachute's open, but something happens.
Why are you laughing? I don't know why you're laughing.
It's a funny scream. I can't believe you don't find those.
I'm so mentally disturbed. You got to bring this to your therapist. This is something. Oh my God. I feel really bad for that guy.
Yeah, me too. I hope he's all right. Yeah. All right.
So that was kind of strange. That made me really, really think that there might be something more to this whole Tom Segura thing. And then when I was watching a couple episodes of Bad Thoughts, I was just like, man, I'm even more convinced that Tom Segura might be up to something. And he might, in fact, be the Lady Bird Lake Rainy Street Ripper. Now, I went through this book, which is really good. I'd highly recommend it. There is an audiobook version if that's more your speed, but it's called Bodies in Low Places, and very interesting for sure to read. A lot of the things we talked about in here would be in that book. I also did some of my own research, like I said, but in order to trace out all of these dates and find all of the missing persons that possibly could have existed during that time period in that location takes a lot of work. So if you have done any work in respect to this, I highly recommend you post it and people can start adding to it. And maybe through the evolution of this story getting shared, we can finally come up with some sort of mapped out, real hard evidence that this might be true. But until then, it's all just speculation. And as much evidence as we seem to have, it is just one of those theories that, more than anything, it's interesting that it was birthed from something so very small. It's like a game of telephone on the internet. And I would almost certainly bet that Tom Segura had no idea that it would come full circle, looping right back to him, especially with all of the crazy things going on with the Lady Bird Lake killer. He even talks about the Lady Bird Lake killer and kind of laughs and scoffs at the cops for basically just saying like, no, there's no foul play. And then they say something like, oh, it's only 37 bodies. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. So that's kind of interesting to me. And I don't know. By the end of all this, I was convinced that Garth Brooks is a serial killer and Tom Segura is a serial killer, possibly working together. Who really knows? But I do want to know what you guys think. So if you have an opinion on this or if you have information on this, drop it in the comments because I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this story and you want to listen to more, I will leave a playlist with every single episode I've ever done at the end. I'll leave some videos that I think you might like at the end as well. If you haven't seen my Titanic video, please watch that one. And if you don't subscribe to the channel, especially after this amazing episode, then I don't know what you're doing, but I would highly recommend that you figure it out and hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 1 million subscribers, you guys, and beyond, really. But I could really use your help with that. So share this video with somebody you think would love it. Share this video with someone who you know loves Garth Brooks. And definitely for sure hit the like button. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It really does help me out. And I'm trying to make this a full-time gig. So I really appreciate all the love and support from each and every one of you. And I really look forward to seeing you guys next Friday. But that is all I have for you guys this week. I really appreciate you sitting and chilling with me for this long, digging into the very interesting Garth Brooks serial killer theory. And like I said, let me know what you think. But
I like good conversation.
I really look forward to doing this again with you guys next week for another one. But until then, sleep safe, stay sober, and remember, Garth has friends in low places.
Let's go.